Greetings, in this video I will be installing and modding a Fallout 4 game on Linux. And while the game runs great on Linux, actually better than it did on Windows, at least visually, I did have a few issues getting a mod manager to run properly. So I'm running Fedora 41 with the KDE desktop or Fedora KDE Spin. Steam is installed from a Flatpak and Fallout 4 is installed via Steam. Because of the issues I was having with various mod managers, I came up with a manual method that works fine for me. And it turns out that it is not that hard, although it does require a little command line. Uh-oh, there's that nasty word, command line. Anyway, a little command line knowledge. I should really write a few scripts for my process that would probably simplify it immensely, although it's not complicated to start with. But before going there, we need to take a moment to discuss the Proton and Wine paradigms, as that's what things are running under. After which I'll be walking through the install, starting with Steam and ending with an overview of modding. So grab a ice cold Nuka Quantum, sit back, relax, and watch me do this. So one of the things we need to overcome to get Windows applications and games to run on Linux is the fact that we're running a Linux kernel, which doesn't speak Windows, so we need the Wine translation layer.
C:/user/rt/test.
That makes no sense.
C:/user/rt/test.
What she means is /home/rt/test.
Okay, that I understand.
Okay, before we get too much further, the first thing we really need to talk about is what's actually going on here. So we have our standard hardware layout. You have your hardware, top of which you have your kernel. That also includes your kernel drivers and kernel mods and your system libraries, system calls sitting on top of that. Now, Wine provides you two things. First, it provides a Windows environment in a sandbox or container or however you want to describe it. And then it provides a translation layer between the system libraries and calls for Linux and same for Windows, so they can talk back and forth and they can understand what each other's saying. Your applications in Wine can run, well, Proton or Bottles or what have you, run inside your Windows environment, or they can run outside your Windows environment, as you'll see here, but they do need to rely on that Windows environment to actually run and communicate with the hardware. So this is the very high level basics of what's going on with Wine, and I'm hoping this helps people understand when I start talking about the folders you need to know about when you're going to be doing what I'm doing. Okay. So our next step is to go ahead and in our environment, I'm going to use the Discover software tool to load Steam. And there's both a Fedora version and a Flatpak version. I am going to load the Flatpak version as it's easier to work with. There's really nothing to set up with the Flatpak version. It generally tends to just work out of the box. It may be a little slower, and on this machine, I'm probably not going to notice a difference. So once it's installed, we're going to go check out our permissions. If you scroll to the bottom of Discover, when you install a Flatpak, you have a button or icon that you can click on to look at your permissions, and you can go ahead and set these as you think you need them. For the most part, defaults are good. And then you can close that, and Steam's now installed, and I can go ahead and create a shortcut and launch it from my desktop. So once we have Steam up and running and we're logged into Steam, the next step is to install Fallout 4. So I'm going to do this a little different than you might be doing it. I'm going to first go to Properties for Fallout 4, and I'm going to uncheck all the DLC before I install it. I'll go to the default library for Steam and we'll just let it install. There's a reason I'm doing this. Since I'm going to be modding manually, I want a way to track files, and that's what the reason I'm waiting on the DLC and actually Creation Club content. I'll download those after I've tagged all the base game files. Anyway, we're going to sort of go quickly through this install because that's just it. It's installing stuff. Okay, before jumping too far along, I want to talk about the directory structure we have once we've installed everything. So for Steam apps, or basic directory is, well, in this case, home, username, dot variable, app, com.value, valve.steam, blah, 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 blah. You can see it's that first line there. This is the same between all the directories we're going to look at because these directories and these path names can be relatively long. Now, if we take our base directory and we tack on the compat data 377160 PFX, this is your Windows Sandbox that was created to run Fallout 4. So when you need to find particular files, this is where you're going to look to find them as they would be on Windows. It includes the game directory and the actual Steam Fallout 4 folder. Now, this is where things get interesting. The game folder is actually located, if you go from our top directory there, instead of going to comp data, we go to common Fallout 4. This is your actual game folder, which sits outside of the Windows Sandbox, but it uses a Windows Sandbox. Now, if we dive, for example, I talked about the, let's say, games folder. If we went with our big Steam apps, then we went to a comp data 377160 PFX, and we'd find a drive C in there, a users folder, Steam users, my documents, my games, Fallout 4, saves. That's where your saved games are stored. So a couple of common folders, but I'm hoping this short explanation, or not a real explanation, I'm just identifying where they are. You can find out by going through your Steam app and going to the local files, but yeah, these are the folders for my application that I need to worry about. There might be one or two others in there, but yeah. Okay, I got to stick this in. I forgot about it when I was going through this video and I just remembered. So there's a few things you want to do once you get installed before you start modding. Since I was talking about the file structures, was a good place to put it. So technically you need to locate some, well, what you need to do is you need to locate some files. They're in this very long directory path, whatever you want to call it. But basically this path takes you to the Windows environment and then into the user, Steam user documents, my games, Fallout 4. That's the place where these files, the Windows INI files or INI files, and you need to make some modifications to make sure modding works correctly. If you don't do it, you're going to have problems. Some mods will work, some won't. But basically, in this folder, you're going to see 2, maybe 3 INI files or INI files, Fallout 4.ini and Fallout 4 prefs.ini. There may or may not be a Fallout 4 custom.ini. Some tutorials I've seen recommend creating this particular file and putting these changes in there. I went ahead and installed them in the Fallout 4 ini and the Fallout 4 prefs ini. So the first one, Fallout 4.ini, you're going to find a section called Archive. If you scroll through the file, if you open it in a text editor, and you're going to, at this Archive section, there's going to be something called S resource data DIRS final, and it'll be equal to, and I've seen it 2 ways, equal to, and then nothing, and then equal to strings. This is basically telling your mods where to find their data and things. So you need to add the textures, the music, the sound, the meshes, the materials, all that stuff. So I modified it. It's all comma separated, and we're using forward slashes. So you just copy what I've got here. This is pretty much everything I found a mod will install in the data directory in the Fallout 4 folder. So this tells it where to look for the things. So you need to make this change. You can save that. And then we're going to move on to the Fallout 4 prefs.ini, and we're going to search the file for something called launcher. There should be a ulast aspect ratio equals 0 under launcher. Actually, you could have changed this one. There's a lot of factors, but it'll be there. But what you need to add is B enable file selection equal 1. So once you've made these two changes and you've saved them, then you can go ahead and restart Fallout, or I should say restart your computer, whatever, restart Steam. And when you launch Fallout 4, it'll then recognize the places where your mods are located. So yeah, you need to do this before you start modding. Like I said, I forgot about this in the initial video, so I just stuck this in here as a good spot for it. Okay, now that we've got Steam installed in Fallout 4, let's launch into Fallout 4. Quickly, just to make sure things are set up. I'm going to delete any previous games I had because we're going to be starting fresh. I want to download some Creation Club, or let's look at the Creation Club here. Let's go ahead and take a look at the Creation Club here. You can also look at your mods. Nothing's really installed right now except what goes with the base game. You can run through the intro. It's always a good idea to at least start a game in Fallout 4. I like to go to the point where I get my abilities and name assigned before exiting out. I can delete the saves later, but this should set up all the preliminary game folders and things we're going to need. So, yeah. After we get all this set up, we're going to go ahead and check our directories. Let's go ahead into a Dolphin File Manager since we're running KDE. And we'll take a look at all our directories here just to make sure they're there and see what's in them. We'll be coming back to these later. This is just a quick review to make sure everything's set up. And everything looks good. So the next thing I'm going to want to do is tag all my base files. So we're going to open a terminal in the Fallout 4, or in the common Fallout 4 folder. This is, again, the game folder that's outside of the Windows environment. And we're going to open a terminal here, and I'm going to run the setf attr command. And you need to do the attribute the way I've got it written here, so it'll show up in Dolphin. And you can see we tagged all these as FO4 base files, which is what we wanted to do here. Okay. Next up, let's go ahead and go into the properties in Steam and download all the DLC for Fallout 4. Once that's done, we can go back in, and with the command line, we can go ahead and tag all the DLC files. And that way we can look at the tags, we can sort by tags, and we can keep them all separate. Let's go ahead and get all the DLC downloaded and tagged up, and then we're ready to move on. where was I? Oh yeah. So next we want to go ahead and download all my free Creation Club content. I strongly suggest, I mean, there's a lot of different opinions about Creation Club, but if you go in there every couple of days, occasionally stuff's free and you can just download it. That's where I got all my stuff from. So I'm going to go ahead and download all that. And then back to tagging the files as Creation Club content. There we go. Now we're set to actually install some mods, I think. So you go to any of the mod managers or however you want to do this, but what you want to do is do a manual download of mods and not install them with mod managers. At least in my case, I've had issues getting the various mod managers to run, even under Fedora. I actually had, I think, Mod Organizer 2 running under Arch a while back, but I seem to have some issues getting it to go here under Fedora, so I'm going to do this manually. Okay, we've got our mods. We download all the mods we want. I put them in a separate directory. You can create a working directory for mods, whatever, but manually installing mods is not hard, but it can be a little tricky. So I'm going to go ahead and tag the mod I'm working with here, just so I can sort and find it one later. And then you're basically going to copy it into the data directory in the common Fallout 4 folder. That's basically all you need to do. There's a little bit more to the copying I need to talk about, but once you boot up to this to the startup or launcher screen, it'll check for any new mods, and then once you log into Fallout 4, you can go to mods and you can see your mod shows up here. And you can check it to activate it, and then it's available in game. So that's not too terribly hard. There are some things you got to watch out for when doing this, though, and that's something I really need to talk about. Okay, I'm going to hit mods installation shortly, but this is a separate, I mean, this is a topic for a whole separate video, really, if you're doing it manually like I am. So first off, you're going to need some programs, 7Z, RAR, whatever they use. You can look at the extensions on the mods and see what they use to compress them, and you're going to uncompress them into a folder. First thing to realize that unlike Windows, Linux is case sensitive. So you're going to see some mods have mesh folders with a capital M. Some have mesh folders with a small m. Same with materials folder, same with the textures folder. You can copy these over, and then all of a sudden you're going to have two meshes folders or two materials folders or two textures folders. You don't want that, because odds are when that happens, one's going to be red, one's not. So you got to watch your capitalization here and make sure you only have one folder, say one textures folder. It doesn't matter if it's spelled with a capital T or a small t, you can only have one folder. It'll use the first one it finds. So that's first thing that I found out doing mods manually, is I got to watch the capitalization of the folders. If a mod doesn't have a script for install, and a lot of mods do, then you basically just copy everything into your install directory, but you got to use a little, that's the data directory. You got to use a little intelligence when you're doing this here, though. You got to look at what you're copying over. You may want to dig into some of the folders before you're copying over to see what goes where. If it does have a script, and a lot of mods do, especially if they're installed by a mod manager, it's most of the time going to be an XML script. Yeah, I usually open this side by side with a text editor like Kate here, and then I go through the script line by line and figure out which mods I need to install. When they have a lot of times when they have a script like this, they have several different options, and the options install different files. So you look at the options you want, you figure out which files you need to install. But as I said, this is a whole subject unto itself, and if there's enough interest, I'll do a video strictly on installing mods manually. And as I said, with the other mods, when I install these, I'm tagging them so I can look at them and tell the difference. But anyways, if you get them installed correctly, well, again, like examples of when I've not had them installed correctly, I've been missing textures. Like I think it was Commonwealth Cuts I installed, but used a small M, small T, and I loaded up and I put one of the hairdos on, and there would be no mesh there, no materials, no textures. So I had to go in and see, I had multiple folders and basically copy this stuff all into one folder, making sure all the capitalization matched throughout the folder, then everything worked fine. But yeah, that's a whole separate video, and yeah, like I say, if there's enough interest here, I'll go ahead and do that on installing mods manually. I like tagging them because I can then scan through the folders and see what mod's what. It's, but like I say, for example, right now I've got, I think 40 or 50 mods running in my Fallout 4 game, all installed manually. So yeah, it is possible. Okay, that's going to be it for this video. It's kind of quick, but yeah, that's the point, was getting Fallout 4 installed. And actually, it's not that hard to get Fallout 4 installed or Steam installed. Modding was a different story altogether, and like I said, that might deserve its own video if people are interested. But again, the basic install of Fallout 4 through Steam on Linux, not that hard, and it worked first time around. Didn't have to do any tinkering at all with that. It's when I started installing mods, I had to play around a little bit, but yeah. Be that as it may, it does work. Interestingly, I'm finding the graphics are actually better on Linux. I'm getting a higher frame rate. Less crashes, actually. When I had this heavily modded on Windows, I'd be, crashing every half hour to 45 minutes. Meaning doing a lot of saves. I played for almost 3 hours straight without a single crash. I'm sold. This was one of the things I was worried about when I totally deleted my Windows partitions, is gaming. And well, at least Fallout 4 works good. So I've also done New Vegas and Fallout 3. Both of them worked mostly without issues. So there are some compatibility problems between Xorg and Wayland. If you're going to game, at least my experience so far under Fedora 41, more than likely you're going to want to stay with Xorg and not Wayland for gaming. Although I was able to get them to run under Wayland, it just wasn't as stable as under Xorg. But again, that's better than it was a year ago where I couldn't get them to run under Wayland at all. So anyway, that's it for this video. So like, subscribe, comment. If you want to see a video on actually installing mods manually in a fairly detailed manner, let me know and I'll be happy to do one. Haven't done a gaming video in a while, so I guess this was more of a technical gaming video, not really a gaming video, but yeah, you know what I mean. Anyways, we'll see you next time.